Imagine having a premonition so clear, so vivid, that nothing you do will erase it from your mind. Imagine, too, a premonition that involves human tragedy of massive proportions. One you cannot place in time or location. A vision of disaster. For Dawn Thomas, such a vision occurred and troubled her so much, she just had to tell someone.
Welcome to another Wednesday night edition of the Open Line Show. Brian Wilshire with you through until 12 tonight, inviting your calls on the Open Line 269. I've been here at 2GB for over 13 years now. I suppose I've spoken to more than 20,000 people on the Open Line, and as you would expect with a sample size that large, we get some strange calls and talk to some pretty strange people.
And one of the strangest calls of all was put through to Brian Wilshire early in October 1979. It was a regular listener, a woman who told the switchboard she had to talk to Brian urgently.
She just called out of the blue, not on air though, this was off air, and she said, look, I've just had this premonition, this terrible feeling there's going to be a plane crash.
Yeah, let somebody know in advance.
That caller was Dawn Thomas, who told the talkback host she'd had the premonition in a dream, a vivid dream that had disturbed her greatly.
I was walking down a street in an unfamiliar city, and I was watching an aircraft flying over sort of the position I was walking in, and I saw it fly into a cloud of bad weather. And then as it emerged from the cloud, I noticed that there was smoke pouring from the back of it, that it was flying somehow erratically, and from the rear of the plane I could hear people screaming, and I found myself thinking, oh, those people are going to die watching this aircraft.
Not only did she hear the sound of the crash, Dawn Thomas told Wilshire she could make out some of the details of the doomed airliner.
I described it as being similar to a 727, and the colours were red on white, but I was quite sure that it wasn't Qantas, even though it was an international airline. And I had an impression of a voice from somewhere saying, you have to expect this in Melbourne, and yet I was aware that wherever I was, it certainly wasn't it was a place that was not familiar to me at all.
As he listened to Dawn's premonition unfold, Wilshire took notes. A red and white aircraft, like a 727. Bad weather. A crash in an unfamiliar country. Passengers at the back of the plane killed. And some unexplained connection with Melbourne. Brian Wilshire was certainly fascinated, but he decided not to broadcast news of Dawn's call. After all, there was nothing really concrete. Not even an airline or a flight number.
News Plus.
And it was only a premonition which could cause widespread and unnecessary panic.
For a day, nothing happened, and then 2 days later, I got the story in from the newsroom that a Swiss Air jet had crashed on landing at Athens Airport.
One theory is that the DC-8 simply went out of control as the runway was wet from a rainstorm and there were strong gusts of wind.
On television that night, more pieces of the jigsaw fell into place. And to Wilshire's astonishment, more and more, the picture resembled the Dawn Thomas dream. 14 passengers were killed in the crash. All of them suffocated in the back of the aircraft. The other 142 passengers escaped. Among them was another startling connection with the premonition.
There were 2 Australians on board the plane who weren't injured, both of whom came from Melbourne.
Now remember, just 2 days before the disaster, Dawn Thomas had predicted all those elements. And there was more. Although the plane that crashed was a DC-8, to a layman, it is similar to a 727. Then there were the colours, red on white, according to Dawn's dream. Well, Swiss Air's planes are white with the company's logo on the tail, a white cross on a red background. And finally, the weather in Athens was appalling that Sunday, October the 7th.
We would like to hear from you. Give us a call now.
To this day, Brian Wiltshire has no explanation for that phone call out of the blue, that prediction which was so tragically accurate.
I wish I knew how anybody could guess something so accurately in advance. It is very disturbing to think that it's possible to tap into future events.
And as for Dawn Thomas, memories of her dream, those 2 suspense-filled days of waiting, and the crash itself will remain with her as long as she lives.
There's all kinds of feelings that a person has to live with when they have an experience like that. There's a feeling of helplessness, guilt and responsibility, like I should have been able to do something.